You ever walk into the kitchen and forget what you came in for? Of course you have. We've all done it. You stand there, scratching your head, staring at the fridge like it's going to remind you, and then you wander back out like a detective without a clue. Now, most of the time, that's just a harmless brain hiccup. But sometimes, these little off moments in our bodies, tiredness, shortness of breath, strange little aches, well, they're like whispers trying to get our attention. And when it comes to your heart, you don't want to miss those whispers before they turn into shouts. Now, before you go thinking this is going to be all doom and gloom, hang on. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to talk with you. Like a good neighbor who happens to care a whole lot. Because here's the thing. Catching the early signs of heart trouble isn't about being paranoid, it's about being wise. And if there's one thing I know about folks over 60, it's that wisdom. You've got that in spades. See, the heart's a funny thing. It's been beating away in your chest since the day you were born, without a single day off. No vacation, no holidays. If your heart were an employee, it'd be due for a serious raise. But even the hardest worker can start showing signs of strain, and your heart will sometimes nudge you gently before it ever makes a big fuss. Take, for example, that kind of tired that doesn't feel like, I stayed up watching old westerns too late, tired. I mean the sort of fatigue that hits you like a wet blanket in the middle of the day, even when you've had your coffee, your toast, and a good night's sleep. That's the kind of tired where you go to fold the laundry and suddenly feel like you need a nap just for opening the dryer. You might chalk it up to age, or maybe the weather, but sometimes it's your heart working harder than it should just to keep up. And here's another one that slips under the radar: shortness of breath. Now, I'm not talking about getting winded after chasing your grandkid through the yard. That's just cardio with a side of chaos. I'm talking about that odd feeling where you're walking from one room to the next or climbing a few steps and suddenly you're gasping a bit like you just climbed Mount Everest. It's easy to shrug it off. Oh, I'm just out of shape, you might say. But if it's happening more often or feels different than before, it might be more than that. A friend of mine, Doris, bless her heart, told me she thought her shortness of breath was because she stopped going to Zumba class. I've turned into a slug, she said. Turns out it wasn't Zumba withdrawal. It was her heart, quietly waving a little red flag. She saw her doctor, made some changes, and now she's back to shaking it on Tuesday mornings with the rest of the Silver Sneakers crew. Sometimes these early signs don't look anything like what you'd expect from a heart problem. One man I knew just felt a little dizzy when he got up from the couch. Nothing dramatic, no fainting, no drama, just a quick spin of the room. Thought he stood up too fast. But it kept happening, and sure enough, it was his heart acting up, not his recliner. And then there's that subtle, nagging discomfort. Not the dramatic, clutch-your-chest movie scene, but something more sneaky, a tightness, a pressure, maybe in your chest, maybe in your neck, or even in your jaw or upper back. I know, sounds strange, right? But our bodies like to play telephone with pain. It doesn't always send the message where you expect it. You could be rubbing your shoulder, thinking you slept on it funny, when really it's your heart asking for a little attention. That's the tricky part. These signs don't always yell, they whisper. And if you're not tuned in, it's easy to miss them. But once you start paying attention, once you know what to look for, well, that's when you really start taking care of that hard-working heart of yours. You know, I always say the older we get, the more we become experts at ignoring things. A creaky knee? Oh, that's just Arthur. It's short for arthritis. A bit of dizziness? Must have gotten up too fast. That weird flutter in the chest? Probably just gas from those beans last night. And hey, maybe sometimes we're right. But sometimes we're not. Let's talk about that fluttering feeling for a minute. You ever feel like your heart's doing a little tap dance in your chest? Like it's skipped a beat, or it's beating faster than usual when you're just sitting there reading the paper? That can be a sign your heart's out of rhythm, not just trying to keep up with your crossword puzzle. It doesn't always hurt. Sometimes it just feels off, like your own body's radio station is out of tune. My neighbor Earl told me once he felt like there were butterflies in his chest. I asked him if they were the romantic kind or the medical kind. He laughed, but turns out they were the medical kind. He had something called atrial fibrillation. Again, not getting technical here, but it's when the heart's rhythm gets out of whack. He's fine now, taking care of it, but it started with just that little flutter he almost didn't mention. Almost. And have you ever broken into a sweat for no good reason? Not because it's hot, not because you've been moving around, just all of a sudden, bam, sweaty palms, damp forehead, maybe even a little chill in your back. That's not just menopause revisiting in disguise. Unexpected sweating, especially if it comes with other things, like nausea or pressure in your chest, could be your heart giving you a wake-up call. And speaking of nausea, yes, believe it or not, your stomach can be part of the heart's drama too. I know it sounds odd. Who would think that an upset stomach could have anything to do with the heart? But sometimes, especially in women, heart trouble shows up like indigestion or even a bit of vomiting. You might think it was something you ate, but if it keeps coming back or doesn't quite feel normal, it might be time to ask a few more questions. I remember my Aunt Helen, sharp as a tack, tough as nails. She once thought she had food poisoning after a family barbecue, complained about feeling queasy, tired, and a bit clammy. She went to bed early, said she'd sleep it off. Thank heavens her daughter checked in on her and insisted they go to the ER. Turned out she was having a heart attack. And yes, she lived to tell the tale and to make sure we all cook the burgers better next time. Now here's one that catches people off guard: swelling in the legs or ankles. It doesn't hurt exactly, it just kind of sneaks up on you. One day your socks are leaving deeper marks than usual, or your shoes feel a little tighter. You might think, well, I've been on my feet all day, or maybe I had too much salt. Sure, that can happen, but if the swelling keeps coming back or gets worse as the day goes on, it could mean your heart isn't pumping as efficiently as it should.
The body's like a clever old machine. It finds ways to tell you what's going on, even if it uses some roundabout methods. A little puffiness in your feet might seem harmless, but when the heart's involved, even the smallest clue is worth listening to. And I get it. Nobody wants to feel like a hypochondriac. We're tough. We've been through things. We've raised families, worked jobs, survived breakups, backaches, and bad perms. But that doesn't mean we have to brush everything off. There's strength in paying attention, in listening to the body we've lived in all these years. Because the truth is, your body's not trying to annoy you with all these weird signals. It's trying to look out for you. It's saying, hey, I need a little help here. And the sooner we answer that call, the better. You know what always amazes me? How we'll take the car in at the first funny noise, but when our own body makes a weird sound or feels a little off, we say, it's probably nothing. We'll spend hours online trying to figure out what's wrong with the washing machine, but we won't take 15 minutes to check in with the doctor about that nagging pain in the chest. Priorities, huh? But that's just how we're built, especially if you grew up in the walk it off generation. Back in the day, unless something was bleeding or broken, you didn't go running to the doctor. And I respect that toughness. I really do. But I'll tell you what, your heart's not interested in being stoic. It's interested in staying alive. And sometimes it gets a little cranky when it's not being heard. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest signs out there: trouble sleeping. Not the usual tossing and turning because the dog's hogging the bed or the neighbor's porch light is bright enough to land a plane. I mean the kind of sleep trouble where you wake up feeling short of breath. Maybe you need extra pillows to sleep sitting up because lying flat feels uncomfortable. That can be your heart saying, hey, something's not quite right here.
I had a friend, Larry. Real night owl, that one. Loved to read late into the night with a cup of tea. Then he started waking up gasping, like he'd just come up from underwater. Thought it was anxiety. Thought it was nightmares. Turned out it was fluid building up in his lungs. His heart wasn't pumping the way it should, and his body was trying to sound the alarm. Now, none of this means you need to panic every time you can't fall asleep. Goodness knows we've all had nights where our brain refuses to shut up. But if it's happening more and more, especially with that breathless feeling, Don't ignore it. That's your body whispering again. And here's one more that'll make you go, huh, loss of appetite. I know, not eating doesn't exactly scream heart trouble, right? But it can be. If your heart isn't pumping well, your digestive system doesn't get the blood flow it needs. That can make you feel full quickly, even if you'd barely eaten, or just generally not hungry. I had a cousin, sweet woman, always brought the best green bean casserole to family dinners. Suddenly stopped eating much. Food just doesn't taste right anymore, she said. We all thought it was just age, or maybe she was down in the dumps. But after a few checkups, guess what? It was her heart. Once she got it treated, her appetite came right back. And so did that casserole, thank heavens. What I'm trying to say is, your body has a way of talking to you. Sometimes in whispers, sometimes in odd little nudges. A missed meal here, a breathless night there. None of it feels dramatic. But when you start connecting the dots, the picture gets clearer. The trick is not waiting until the dots turn into flashing red signs. And I know, it can be hard to tell what's just aging and what's something more serious. We're used to things changing as we get older. A new ache, a bit more tired than usual, pants fitting differently even when you haven't touched a donut. That's all part of the ride. But when something feels off and it sticks around, that's when your heart might be trying to get your attention. The goal here isn't to scare you. The goal is to give you the tools to notice things, to tune in a little more, to be the kind of wise, sharp, caring person who says, you know what? I don't feel quite right, and I'm going to check on that. I'll tell you what's one of the most frustrating things as we get older. Our body doesn't always play fair. One day you're mowing the lawn, the next you're wondering why your chest feels tight after just bringing in the groceries. It's like your body changed the rules of the game and forgot to send you the memo. One more sign I want to talk about, and this one's a little more emotional, is just not feeling like yourself. You know what I mean. Maybe you feel more anxious lately. Maybe your mood's been swinging around like a ceiling fan on high. Or maybe it's just a heavy kind of blah that settles in and won't leave, even when the sun's shining and the coffee's hot. Now sure, life has its ups and downs. We all have days when we feel a bit off. But there's actually a strong connection between the heart and the mind. When your heart isn't working right, when it's under stress or not getting enough oxygen, it can mess with your mood in surprising ways. Anxiety, depression, even confusion or memory slips. They're not always just in your head. Sometimes they're in your chest, too. I remember my friend Marie, one of the cheeriest souls you'd ever meet, started withdrawing from her book club, stopped going to church, just sort of faded into the background. We thought maybe it was the winter blues. Turned out her heart wasn't pumping well, and it was affecting everything from her energy to her spirit. Once she got the right treatment, it was like someone flipped a switch. Marie came back with all her stories, her sass, and her banana bread. That's the thing. Your heart doesn't just keep your body alive. It keeps you alive. Your humor, your memories, your hugs, your dancing in the living room when no one's looking moments. So when something feels off, even if it's just emotional or hard to put into words, it's worth paying attention to. And listen, I get it. It's tempting to brush these things off. No one wants to feel like a burden. No one wants to sit in another waiting room or be told to take another pill. But you're not being dramatic. You're being wise. You've earned the right to take your health seriously. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the life you've lived and the life still ahead. Because here's the truth, and I say this with all the warmth in my heart. You matter. Your heart matters. That good laugh you have, that story you always tell about the dog and the watermelon, that way you still dance to the oldies in the kitchen, the world's a better place with that in it. So if something feels off, really off, don't wait. Don't talk yourself out of it. Call your doctor. Talk to someone. Get it checked. You've spent a lifetime caring for others. Let's make sure you're caring for yourself just as fiercely.